We are all present with the exception of our secretary. So first order of business, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First, our next order, the consideration of the agenda. Is there any input from the commission? Okay, conflicts of interest, any? None? Good. The meeting minutes from March 24th, 2025 have been submitted for approval. I don't have any comments. Anyone? Motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes from.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, so on to public comment. This is about general items for comment, not specifically about agenda items. There'll be another opportunity for that. We have 2 written comments. Is that right, Jenny?
Correct. I have one from Janet Killian and Robin Green.
Okay. Invite you to please address your questions and comments to me and limit your time. Again, it is comment. This isn't a conversation. I'm sorry, I've already forgotten who you said. Who's the first one? Janet, please.
A number of parcels in Torch Lake Township on Torch Lake have very steep banks. Some of these could even be described as cliffs. Plants and ground cover are not adequate erosion controls for these steep banks. The plants in the ground cover wash down the bank and do not hold the soil. People who have these parcels need relief. They should be allowed to have more substantial soil erosion controls than what you currently have in the zoning ordinance. Variances to the zoning ordinance are not the way to resolve this problem. You need to change the zoning ordinance to allow for exceptions to the shoreline protection strip. When the elevation from the lake increases 12 feet or more in a distance of less than 15 to 20 feet, it's too steep to hold the plants. I urge.
If you just say your name and.
Sure. I'm Robin Granso. I live at 12231 Barnes Park Road, and I'm here to share my appreciation for the Church to Bay section of the Nukwema Trail. I grew up in an undeveloped suburb on the south side of Grand Rapids. It was a quiet place at that time, but it grew into a pretty well-developed suburb and booming area by the time I was a teenager. And that increase in traffic brought a lot of safety concerns, and a lot of trails began to appear kind of all across the area. So by the time I was raising my own son, many of those trails began to be made to connect, and now you can safely travel from place to place by foot or by whatever on that trail. These trails are highly adored and used by many of the community members. Where I come from, having a trail near you is a good thing. It increases your property value. People in Michigan like being outdoors, and especially in the summer, we value recreation and exercise, and we place emphasis on family-friendly activities. My husband and I moved here because we love the outdoors here. It's why we came here just last year. And in less than the year that we've been here, it hasn't even been a year, we've met lots of neighbors and made a lot of wonderful friends. And the way that we've met them is by being outside walking our dogs, riding bikes, things like that. It's as if Torch Lake Township was made for people who like the outdoors. So there are many trails in the woods, but they don't go anywhere. And the Torch to Bay Trail will give the community a safe way to travel by bike, foot, rollerblade, whatever you want. It'll be a lovely addition to our community. It will be used by so many people, even people who think they don't want it, because one day those people are going to step outside onto the trail and realize what the fuss is all about. Change is hard. Anytime there is change, people don't want it. People are upset. People are put out. They're disgruntled. They're not happy about it. But the thing is that you can't please everyone. The Torch to Bay Trail is going to be an amazing addition to the community. It will take on its own presence and legacy and be adored and used well.
Thank you. We only had the 2 comment cards, I believe, filled out. Is there anyone else that was looking forward to making a comment? All right. Close that. Next, correspondence. Jen, you didn't have any correspondence?
I have no correspondence.
Thank you. Unfinished business, I believe we do not have any other than items for the agenda, correct? Anyone else? On to new business. So in the recent zoning amendments, we recently, with the changes and the redrafting, but reorganization, came to our attention that there is no longer a definition for the short-term rental in the ordinance. We have a proposal from the zoning administrator with the definition, I believe it was the same definition that was previously in the ordinance. Thoughts?
I don't understand the regardless of the term of renter occupancy during any 30-day period. I thought about that up, down, and sideways and saw no relevance to that clause. I started to think that maybe it was designed to have, like, if you went 15 days and then 1 day
Right.
off and then 15 days, but that's a 31-day period. So if it's during any 30-day period, if it's any 30-day period, you're either in there 30 days or you either rented those 30 days or not. But maybe I'm missing something.
I think what tends to happen is that,
No.
Yeah, you need it for the
Yes.
live feed.
okay, better? Whoa, okay. So what tends to happen is with the definition of a short-term rental being less than 30 days, what people will do is rent it for, say, 7 days and then not rent it again for another 30 days. So I believe that's why the definition is in there regardless of, so any rental that is less than a 30 days is considered short-term rental. People get around that by saying that, well, for this 30-day period, I only rented it to one person for 7 days, something like that. So it helps to make it very clear that short-term rentals within a 30-day period are not allowed.
Okay. See the point, but I also understand what you mean. It's not exactly clear, is it? Maybe we could find a few better words to.
Yes, I agree, especially given the importance of this particular definition and
Right.
how, it's one of the hottest topics in this area in the summer. I think we need to be really clear to define exactly what we're trying to prevent or avoid.
Yeah. I've read in other areas where people will do it for 5 days or something and back them up and say, well, it's not 30, or, somehow there's yeah. Okay. Shall we table it and try to come up with some revised language that captures it?
Sure. We can easily give you several examples of definitions to give you, food for thought.
That would be good. There's got to
Yeah.
be some good examples out there that
There
others
are.
have used that,
There
yeah.
are plenty.
Right.
I can assist Sarah with that and relay this
Okay.
message back to her.
Perfect.
I have one comment. It has been brought to my attention that another thing that's starting to happen is that there's leasing companies that are leasing for the owners. And then those leasing companies will lease to someone and then they sublet. So
There
they're
we
getting
go.
around
Yeah.
still having a short-term rental.
So they lease
home.
it for 3 months or something and then
Mhm.
sublet for
And then
7 days.
sublate for 7 days. So I don't know if that language also needs to be put in.
I did have a phone call from an HOA secretary that was concerned about that today. And so I'm already looking into that and we'll discuss this with Sarah to make sure that the definition is ironclad.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question? I want to be clear what the intent. So if, for instance, there's a 30-day requirement, but you have a renter that comes and says, I'll pay for the 30 days, but I'm only going to be here for 1 week of it. But the intent is to prevent that. So it would be basically vacant for 3 weeks for the 1 week, because I've heard that does happen. And so is that the intent, that if it's rented for 30 days, you're expected to be there for 30 days?
Based on what I heard you say earlier, if you rent it for 30 days but only show up for 7, that means the remaining 23 days, nobody else can be there.
Right, okay.
Or it needs to be
That
a
would be
family member of that
acceptable
renter.
to the
Yeah.
people that don't want short-term rentals.
The problem is renting it for 30 days. They use it for 7, and then the next people show up the day after they leave and rent for 30 days. They're paying the premium, but you've got people in there in and out constantly, right? So that's,
I believe the intent is to not prohibit long-term rentals. So if somebody wishes to rent their place for 31 days or 2 months or 6 months or something like that, that is allowed for long-term rentals. But the short-term rentals, where you have people that come in and have parties and noise and things like that change the character of a single-family residential neighborhood, those are not allowed per the Torch Lake Township zoning ordinance.
Is your concern that if somebody does rent it for 30 days but is only there for 10, but it's vacant the remaining 20, that would be a concern?
It's not my personal concern. I want to know what the intent of the 30-day, if they're obligated to be there 30 days.
Well, what this is saying is that.
Just no one else can rent it
Right.
until that 30 days would that be the intent?
Well, the intent is to not allow short-term rentals. A short-term rental is defined as a rental that is 30 days or less. So to not be a short-term rental, you would have to rent it for 31 days or longer. So because it's not allowed, if somebody rented it 7 days or whatever, that is not allowed because it's still less than 31 days.
I think that,
Yeah,
it's strange because bottom line is, and you can see properties up for rent for $30,000 for a 30-day period with, full well that in a lot of those instances, it's people that come in for Horses by the Bay or other events and they pay the full amount and that's the market rate for a 30-day rental. I don't think we can, I personally wouldn't want to create something where we're trying to police every day
Yeah.
what's going on there. I think at the end of the day, we're trying to avoid the short-term rentals, period. And if somebody rents it, for 31 days and they are only in there for half of that, then it
Then,
is what it is.
yeah,
Right,
we
and-
don't care.
Right, yeah. And we have a fairly short season when that's an issue here, right? So it's unlikely you're going to have a lot of transients, I guess, people coming in and out of them. Okay, so we'll work on a revised definition and have that for the next meeting, I think. Everyone good with that? Bylaw review. These were some comments that we had from earlier meetings, as well as additional comments from our zoning administrator. We have already identified a problem in these as revised. And that would be with our representative from the township serving as an officer. So there would be a couple of ways to handle that, I think. One would be we have a new election and have a new vice chair. We can change the bylaws to remove that provision. Andy, I think you had a conversation and understood there was a conversation with the township attorney that would be permissible.
Yes. Yes, as I was prior chair, that once I was elected to the board, I could no longer be chair. The vice chair was allowed, but that's obviously in conflict to these bylaws. So I think what we need to do, at least as it relates to that section, is go back and clarify that. And
Yeah, why was that in there in the first place, or why have we?
Right.
Yes, must be a reason for it.
I think it may also have to do with the definition of officers, would be my guess, is that there's officers like a secretary and
Perhaps it's
treasurer and things of that nature. but-
antiquated.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would make sense. I'll also say in some of the vacancies and succession, it's awfully stilted, and I don't know that for example, if there's a vacancy in the chair or the vice chair, the secretary automatically becomes the vice chair, and then you replace the secretary. I don't know that the commission might want a little freer hand on how to handle something like that.
Under H on page 3.
Yes. So third try, does anyone have any other thoughts, or do you want to read them and give comments? All we're trying to do is update these, just clean them up at this point, but.
I think I went through and because we've shifted from a 7 to a 5-person commission. I think all of the math in here works right as far as when you have quorums and so forth. The sample or consideration of the agenda, or I should say the sample agenda.
Yes,
What was that?
yeah,
It's not consistent.
it's not quite right, is it?
No, it's not
No.
right.
I noticed that.
Yeah, thanks. So I think we'll take those notes, and then if there are any others,
I had one more. It's just more of a question. It's in new section 6, so incompatibility of office. Paragraph B, and it refers to a state statute with municipalities less than 25,000 persons, which clearly we are. And I think what basically is trying to say there's more latitude around incompatibility of offices with a small township like us. I'm wondering if we can avoid the verboseness of this by just saying there's latitude, because I don't think we're going to get to 25,000 anytime soon.
yeah, okay. Right, just be clear on what we're saying, no sense in hinting at it, I guess. All right, then. We will,
Going back to the inconsistency of the agenda, does the agenda as written, does that work well? That's what should be incorporated in the bylaws, any proposed changes to the structure? That would be the time for us to address that.
I think it works. It would be interesting to compare it against, I have not done this, compare it against the board flow. The board flow is similar as well. And I think there are nuances to the planning commission versus the board. But I think that would be the only thing is to, it looks good, but I would want to double check it against that.
Thank you.
and we talked about the public hearing. We've got 2 opportunities in addition to input on a public hearing. Are those at the right places, in our opinion? And Jen, that's pretty consistent, I guess, is it?
It is.
Okay. Okay,
No, I'm good.
if you have any other comments, we'll send it back through Sarah and get a final draft for the next meeting, if that works for everyone. And we'll hold in abeyance whether or not you're the vice chair, I guess, until we get a ruling on that. Yeah.
We kind of voted you without you. I know. You even won it.
I think we elected you and waiting for that anyway, so we'll see. All right, so bylaw review is complete. Move on to the master plan draft.
Excellent. So what Sarah shared with me is that has everybody had a chance to review what is in your packet for content? It's really important that we get any content changes from you sooner than later before we move on to the next stage of drafting this, because it's difficult to move things around. So if you need additional time to review the content, we do have some wiggle room, but it's important for us to get your comments on the content. Sarah would like to get your blessing on the survey, so that would be a priority for this evening, is to make sure that the survey questions, that you're all comfortable with those, because she would like to go live with those as soon as possible. And again, she asked you to not worry about format. We'll be using a Survey Monkey, so the survey questions will be cleaned up and all of that. And then she also wanted us to get confirmation on the date for the open house. And her preference would be perhaps the second week in September, so we can walk through the chapters together. I'll take any notes on comments that you have, and then want to circle back to these other items so that we can move a few things forward.
I have a couple questions. Well, for the second week of September, do you know what was the thinking as far as that time period?
The thinking was that people would have more time because kids are back in school, but that it's still early enough that you still have summer residents, or people that are primarily here during the warmer season, so that they could still provide input. So it was kind of a happy medium of, allowing everybody to have the opportunity to participate in the open house. And that's not to say that there won't be other opportunities for public comment and public input, but wanted to, get the best turnout possible for scheduling that open house.
Right, just for the open house, for the informal.
My input, I like the September date rather than August. I kind of agree with Sarah of that.
Yeah, August can be pretty busy and
Yeah.
you're not going to get as much attention or,
People are squeezing in that last vacation and
right, right. So people who were paying attention and committed would be around in September, that's what we thought.
In terms of the survey, how is that, can you review again how that's going to be, how people are going to participate in that?
Sarah did not review exactly how it's going to be handled for Torch Lake Township with me, but I know that Beckett and Rader in the past, that there will be an online version as well as hard copies for people that aren't comfortable doing things online. It's run through a program called SurveyMonkey, so it's very user-friendly. And so we will create a QR code that people can scan it and do it that way. And so then the QR code could be, placed at, public places so that people can download it on their phone or go to the website, or we can have hard copies. We'd of course have them here at the Township Hall and perhaps other places that you recommend. Recently for Petoskey, we had it at the library and, some other locations like that. So it will be published in a variety of formats.
Will this, when are we thinking to get this survey ASAP or?
I think that's the point. We want to
Yes.
get it
Yeah.
out, start rolling it out as soon
Because
as we can.
once the summer residents leave, it may not be feasible, if we're not doing a mailing per se, it may not be feasible to get that input.
That's the idea, to finalize the survey as soon as possible so that we can start circulating it, get those comments back and have those results before we have the open house, which would be a further opportunity for people to give input or.
And the survey questions will also help to drive some of the work that we're doing on the update to your Parks and Recreation Plan.
Right.
And the Parks and Recreation Plan has a firmer deadline than the actual master plan. And so we want to make sure that we have a solid draft of the Parks and Recreation Plan done by end of October so that, we can meet our deadlines and submitting that to the DNR. So getting the survey live as soon as possible is a priority for Sarah and our team.
I have a few things I would like to talk about including or adding to. One of the things that was brought up several times in my past 3 years is the ability or interest in our village hamlets to have more of a definition, or for the people that, well, for the people of the township, but particularly the people of the villages, to have some say in if they would like their hamlet village enhanced, how would that be? Would that be to encourage more business? Would it be, there was a talk from time to time about just the look of our villages, that they might look more like a village in some way to, so I don't know how they would form that question, but I'm interested in having that somehow. Is there an interest by Hamlet Village members to have more of a voice into, we're really supposed to be thinking about 20 years down the line.
Agreed.
So I would like to see that addressed.
Can we just stick with that for a minute?
Oh,
and
sure,
talk about-
sure.
Yeah. So I don't know, I'm also, I see your point. I'm struggling with how we put that in, conscious that she's already warning us we've got too many questions as it
Okay.
is. But I don't know that that's, I think we've covered a lot here.
Okay.
But it seems like it would be the housing, right? Somehow you would, in connection with the housing types, what do we feel?
I'm not sure where that was going, but it came up a few times in the last Yeah, does anybody remember hearing about that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think I mean, I guess I have a lot of questions here, but one of the biggest ones was just kind of, what is our plan to create the master plan? What are the sequence of steps? I mean, obviously, there's going to be a survey. We're going to have an open house. We talked about the Parks and Recreation component of it, or sub-plan. Because it's almost like, if I look at the current master plan, it's really hard to digest, in my opinion. There aren't many, there's a ton of very specific things, but there's a laundry list of there's just a ton of them in there. And it feels kind of like it was developed to just come up with something, and I'm probably being critical of people who were involved with it, and I don't mean to be. It just, at the time, when I look at it now, it's not reflective of kind of where we are today and the rapid changes that are going on here. Everything from the erosion control concerns and rising water to, changes with the air park. Heck, that was another thing that we got to figure out how that fits into it. The trailway coming through here, rapid changes in the hamlets themselves that, I think this is only going to accelerate. So, while I want to get this done quickly, I don't want to rapidly just proceed with it without giving it some thought of what we're trying to accomplish.
Master plan to encourage with that space or others.
I think that we could add a question to hit on that based on a survey that we recently developed for, again, because I'm working on the project Petoskey Winter Sports Park. So we were asking the questions, in addition to the activities that already exist, what are some of the other things that you would like to see happen? I apologize that I'm not familiar with this property acquisition or the discussions that went around it, but I understand what you're trying to get at. This is an excellent opportunity. We're putting time and energy into the city to get people to respond to their vision of how this special place, in addition to being a trailhead, what are the other complementary uses that people would like to see there, so that it will also inform the master plan, so that if someone comes in with an application in the future, that can be informed, as well as add to the Parks and Recreation master plan. I hear you.
yeah. Okay.
What we could do, because I just did this for my work, is when we get this survey developed, we put it into the program. And then before we actually blast it out, we send it out to 5 or 10 test takers or survey testers.
Yeah.
And let them see if the questions, and then you have enough time to tweak them before you do the final with everybody. Because we just did that and it saved a mess, because we had a couple questions that were really poorly worded and we wouldn't have gotten the most critical information we needed. And because when you, like some of this stuff with these multiple choice and you got the grids, and I agree with you, the wording is odd. But once you get them set up in there, assuming the wording's good, bang, you can get some really good information, because people can rank a bunch of different categories really easily. And if you send that out, it could be pretty good digital data we get back.
So it's like a test group that,
Yeah, we could do it within backing up, like if we want to launch it, I don't know, July 1st or whatever. 1 week prior to that, you send it to 5 or 10, then you make any quick changes to it and make sure, and you tweak the wording. You're not going to make massive changes, but as long as we can do that within rules and stuff, I think it'd be really helpful.
I think we have a pretty free hand here in the survey, don't we? We don't need,
We can definitely do a test before it goes live.
right. We can ask whatever questions are relevant,
Yes.
likely relevant to the plan, and set it up in the best way possible. Okay,
Yes.
that's a good suggestion. I am a bit concerned with the timing. Do we think we need to wait for our next meeting, which is a month from now, to review the final survey and approve it?
I would say no. Is it possible if, you know,
Right. Can
Sarah
we,
and
can we
I-
form a subcommittee that,
and communicate via email?
or have a special meeting
A
just
special
focused
meeting,
on that too. I'd be
yes.
willing to do that.
Okay.
Yep.
You'd
Just
be willing to
bang
have a special meeting before the next one? I know that Sarah would appreciate that because she said that was the priority to have this go live, so, and we want to make sure you're comfortable with it, that, so. Okay. So should we just plan to do a special meeting and not form a subcommittee? I can take these responses back to Sarah. We can work on something, have it ready for discussion for a special meeting.
yeah. Would it be reasonable if we would send our comments individually by email to Sarah within a week? And
Yes, that would be helpful. In addition to the copious notes that I've taken and just my understanding of kind of what's missing in this to make it unique to Torch Lake Township.
And then perhaps a special meeting in 2-ish weeks, which would give time for her to process our comments, hopefully, and come up with an additional draft.
And if we get it through and everybody reads with the input, we can cancel the special meeting.
So
Right.
We don't
email
have to have it if
comments.
we don't need it, but if we have it on the calendar, that we can always.
Put it on the calendar so that we can discuss it if we need to, but I don't think, I mean, I think we're in principle, we're in agreement, and I don't know if we can, if there's a motion we can come up with, but we agree we need to do a survey, and we agree with the direction of it. Now it's finalizing it.
Agreed. So would it be fair to say that you all could email your comments to Sarah by end of the week? That would give her an opportunity to digest them in addition to me updating her on this, and that as needed, a special meeting within 2 weeks.
Okay.
And I'll have Sarah send out a reminder email as well. It's always helpful.
Good? Maybe we should move to approve going forward with a survey pending final decision on wording of the questions. That way, if we are resolved, we don't need to have an additional meeting to approve it being circulated. Does that make sense? Okay, so we'll move to finalize and distribute a community survey for the master plan pending agreement on question wording by the commission. Second?
Can you repeat it one more time?
No. Move to, that we will circulate a questionnaire regarding community input on the master plan, pending final comment and final review and comment of the specific question wording by the commission.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay. So that's one thing. Now we got to circle back to the master plan chapters that were proposed, which,
I think we also took care of some other business and that there was tentative agreement on doing the open house in September.
Yes.
Do we need a motion and second for that, or?
good point.
Why don't we go ahead and do it just to be safe?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to have an open house scheduled in the second week of September.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Good. Okay, the master plan chapters. I will say the factual data, I don't have a lot of, it looked pretty impressively comprehensive, to be honest.
I only had one question about them, was just, there was a lot. I guess doesn't hurt to have it. Wondering, I mean, where did it come from?
This content.
Yes.
So we have a team of planners that work on master plans all over the state.
Gotcha.
And so we, of course, reviewed your existing master plan. And with Sarah being the zoning administrator here, she's very familiar with the community. So we look at current census data to get a lot of the factual information and then start drafting the different chapters. We have a certain formula for developing the different chapters of the master plan based on the Michigan Planning Enabling Act and Michigan Zoning Enabling Act. There are certain things that need to be included in a master plan. So we just start to tackle it that way.
No, it's really nicely done. Just, there's a lot. It's pretty impressive.
Yes, I learned a lot.
And quite a bit on coastal and flood planning resiliency, so per earlier comment. It's under consideration. So my point was the facts here, I think, are solid. I'm not going to quibble with how many residents we have, et cetera. But there are 3 sections of takeaways and recommendations, right? And those are probably where we need to give consideration most of all. I assume those are recommendations from you, from the zoning administrator, on things that we would consider.
Yes.
So what's the current, you want us to review it and we have. What's the step that you're asking for us to do at this point?
If you have any questions or concerns about the content, for us to discuss them and vet it.
Okay.
I mean, from a timing perspective, how many, it would be helpful, I think, at a future meeting to lay out all the sections of the master plan, like the master kind of table of contents.
Okay.
So, and then, and then we see like there's, because when we all were involved with reviewing our zoning ordinance, we had the table of contents with all the different sections, and we were able to say, okay, tonight we're going to go through 1, 4, and then 5 through whatever. And then you can kind of get a sense of making progress, but also know, like, I read through these, but there's a lot. And some of these things have, I think this is mostly background, so I'm not too concerned about it, but, we had one citizen comment earlier about the bank, and sure enough, one of the pages shows a bank right in Torch Lake Township. That's just what that person was describing. So I'm like, okay, we want to make sure that we capture some of those things. So I guess I'm just saying, if we're not in a hurry to approve this right now, do we have to?
No, well, and the plan this evening was to encourage you all to really start digging in and digesting the content, that we do have time to work on that. The priorities are getting the survey live, because that's going to help us make some changes in some of the chapters that will be forthcoming, right? And so there is time to do that. And so it wasn't the plan to adopt these chapters this evening. It was to discuss them, for me to get your feedback on the content, questions, concerns, too much, too little? What are we missing for these specific chapters? I agree it would be helpful for you to have a table of contents so you can kind of see what some of the other chapters are that will be coming, to know that a certain topic will be addressed appropriately. So that's something easy for us to pull together for you. If
Okay.
you want us to take it in, smaller sections as well, kind of bite-sized chunks, we can do that as well. I believe that Sarah just wanted to get you as much information as possible so that you could have time to review it, that you could, review a chapter in the evening after dinner or over the weekend when you have time. We all know how busy you are.
All right, with that then, I think, is there anything specific in here that any of you have to,
Anything, glaring in the content.
right,
like
anything
we
glaring
missed the
or?
character or.
I have read some other master plans and this is consistent, I guess, in terms of volume or specificity of information. I don't see,
I have a question. Is climate resilience, is that something that is being put in master plans?
Yes.
Did I see it? Did I miss it, or?
Well, we probably haven't addressed it yet.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah,
Okay.
so. it
again,
will be
having the
coming-
chapters would be helpful
Yeah,
to
yeah.
Yes.
know where
So
we're
the
going
ta-
with all this, right?
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
and another new component to master plans based on some recent state is we need to have a chapter on housing. So that's why there's, so many questions related to housing in the community survey.
Okay. Okay.
So we can absolutely get a draft table of contents for you so you can see the additional chapters that will be coming and see how, this background information, the factual census data and things is going to build on the other chapters that will be forthcoming.
I think that's a good suggestion and a good way to go. Well, if we see the chapters and then we can think about if we do a couple at a time, I suppose, and we have time to really consider, which is kind of where she's going with this, I think. She's given us two, right? And the recommendations would be what we focus on. But yeah, give us a roadmap so we know where we're going.
Okay.
And we probably haven't gotten to it yet, obviously, but the air park, we have to figure out where that fits. We have to at least make more clear reference to it because the current plan, it's kind of loose.
As your zoning administrator, I get questions from the community about what can happen there, and
Right.
yes, I agree.
I think that's in the list of things we talked about. All right, so I don't think we're ready to have a discussion yet on the recommendations. Are you right? Am I right? My thought is we want to focus on have two or three really substantive recommendations rather than this laundry list from the other of here's everything we could think of to show our work. But really focus in on what's achievable in the next 5 years or aspirational in the next 10, 20, not just everything. Anything else that?
There was
I'm
nothing.
just anxious with the survey, I hope we get a good response. I think that will be very telling and helpful in going forward.
And the open house too, I think
And
that'll be,
open house, yeah.
yeah, and we'll be a lot further along. But we're gonna have to get through these through the summer to have something ready for that, I think.
Do you know when your last community survey was done?
Bob?
Okay. Okay. So it's not too old, but it's not uncommon that, things are changing rapidly. And so the community survey will assist the board in making a lot of decisions that they have to make. It'll assist the planning commission in looking at special use permits and things. So we understand now how important it is to get the survey questions correct. I understand that you want a roadmap to kind of see where this is going, but in the meantime, with the chapters that Sarah's presented to you, if you have any concerns about content, don't worry about formatting, if the picture is on a different page or something, because all of that will get flushed out. But if there's anything with regard to content that concerns you or you have questions about, we would love to hear about that sooner than later. Because as we start to move forward, it gets harder for us to make significant changes, adding pages of verbiage or additional, things, tables and things like that.
Right. Now, I don't see a need for significant changes like that. Again, just more hold the recommendations. We'll
Okay,
go through those once we've
okay.
reviewed the facts of it. Everybody happy with that? Shall we close that and move on? So I guess the next meeting, not the special meeting, but the next regular meeting, we'll start reviewing chapters of the master plan and finalizing the recommendations. Probably starting with the first two, actually three that she's given us here. Okay. Ongoing reports. Zoning administrator, any report?
Well, I will say that we are busy. And so I believe right now for the year, there are 27 land use permits that we're working through. There's a handful right now that we're just waiting on additional information, revised site plan, things like that. So we continue to move those forward as quickly as possible. Have not had a lot of complaints, more questions about what things are, different projects. There's a logging happening off of Creswell. Yeah, so I'm getting a lot of questions about that. So, digging into that. But I would say for the time of year, the number of land use permits that we're seeing is pretty standard. Things are picking up.
'Tis the season.
'Tis the season.
Any questions? ZBA, the ZBA has not had a meeting, but there's a special meeting planned for 2 weeks for variance over on the other side of the lake. So don't know much more about that at the moment. Andy, the board?
Yes, so been pretty active with the board. There's been a lot of things going on. Certainly the early part of this year was around budgets and getting ready for a lot of work goes into that with the township supervisor and the board members. Then we renewed some contracts, both for enhancing some of the care around the cemetery. We ended up doing some establishing a new contract for taking care of the day park. And then there's been a fair amount of discussions around library and Elk Rapids. So that'll probably be something that comes up in the audience tomorrow, but we'll see. That's it.
I did note when we were talking about the survey, I don't know the expense of that, but something to consider for future reference for us and to take to the board is budgeting that more often, maybe if it's not a
Sure.
huge expense, but do it every couple of years instead of every 5 years, or just be an interesting data point for us, I guess.
Yep.
Okay, I believe that's all the reports, and move on to public comment. If anyone would like to, please direct your comments to me, and please keep them concise.
So my name is Casey Wiggins. I live at 131 Northwest Torch Lake Drive, Keewaydin. I guess my understanding is this comment is about the topic on the agenda that we talked about previously, the short-term rental and the modification of the zoning for that. I guess I'm not sure if it's a concern or a set of questions. As I watched the new zoning ordinance be formulated in the last 2 years, it talks about topics that are very much more long-term, I'll say, as opposed to short-term. Concern about an airport. Airport doesn't pick up and leave 1 week to the next, or the signage down at the Eastport Market. You know, you either can do it or you can't do it, and if you can't do it, it comes down and it doesn't reappear. So I guess I'm raising the thought that consideration needs to be given to compliance, enforcement, remediation, as you think about modifications to zoning for short-term rental. People have a house, they go rent it, cat's out of the bag, now what? You slap them on the wrist. Is there a number of times you can be slapped? What happens? And I don't know how you fit that into the zoning, but it's something that I believe should be at least considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No. All right, concerns of the commission? I have none. Anyone else? Good, okay. I think we aired them all. Anything from you, Jen?
No, it's just a pleasure to meet all of you, and I look forward to working with you. From time to time, I will support Sarah in this role, and I've really enjoyed learning about the community and assisting Sarah with zoning administration, and this is a beautiful place. I personally live in Acme Township, and so not far away, but it's just a pleasure to meet all of you and work with you this evening, so.
Very good, welcome. Spend more time here.
Thank you.
Okay, 8:15, do we have a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Adjourned.